Carpe Diem, a Jegulus fanfic written by Els31 and read by Heo Stories. Chapter 8. Sleep is for the weak. Warnings: none. Regulus Black is not weak. This is a fact, a known fact even. Regulus Black is not weak because Rasselas Black was. It took a while for Regulus to realize the change, but once he did, he was determined that Regulus was not weak. He couldn't be, because he spent so long living as Rasselas and being too easy to destroy. Rasselas Arcturus Black was pathetic, ruined, and easily malleable. Regulus was not. Regulus killed and buried Rasselas the moment he stepped foot in London 5 years ago. Regulus Black is a doctor, a grown man, and a surgeon student. Sometimes Regulus really hates Regulus Black. He hates how the version of himself hasn't been able to shake off the remnants of being overly obsessed with wanting to achieve anything and everything. He hates how this version of himself is always so desperate to impress people that even after qualifying, he's picking up shifts left, right, and center just to continue to prove himself. He hates that he said yes to the last 2 night shifts to cover for sick staff and didn't cancel his study date with Mandora the morning he finished his 6th shift in a row. He hates how even though it's been a week since James came to his flat, Regulus is still confused on what is going to happen. It's so confusing. And nothing was confusing before James turned up. Everything was fine. Regulus had his job, his friends, his apartment with his cat, and a very active sex life that didn't involve any stupid feelings. Now, James has waltzed in and is making Regulus feel. He's making Regulus feel things he's never felt before, because he's never allowed anyone to get close to let his body and heart fight over something. James had barely had to try to knock down the defenses Regulus had built when he buried Rasselas 5 years ago. But instead, all he had to do is smile, and walls of his castle have crumbled like meager sand. Regulus doesn't know why he allowed James to stay that Sunday. He doesn't remember the clearly disoriented thought process he had when he said it was fine for James to stick around for a whole day to watch Bake Off and then cook him dinner. Regulus hasn't ever done that with anyone apart from his 3 friends. No one other than Pandora, Barty, and Evan even know where his flat is, let alone been allowed in and hosted an entire day of company. The crisis that followed James leaving that Sunday evening was monumental and, quite frankly, would have been one of the legendary books if anyone had witnessed it. Regulus was on the verge of phoning Pandora and telling her they're leaving the country just to get away from the mess he'd gotten himself potentially into. Regulus liked James. The realization he had him harder and sharper than a direct punch in the face from a heavyweight. Regulus proceeded to hide away from the world his only day off after James' debacle. He told everyone he was studying, James included, and turned off his phone for almost 48 hours. He only revealed himself from the safe tomb of his flat to go to work, and even then he made very excuse as to why he couldn't meet Barty and Evan on their lunch break. Regulus managed to freak out alone for a total of 5 days, ignoring all his texts like the plague, before James came into the hospital again, coffee in hand, as predicted, and asked to speak with Regulus if he had a minute. Regulus wanted to say no. His brain was screaming to say he didn't have time to save himself the incoming precedented pain that luring himself into. Instead, Regulus said yes. The rules fell from his mouth, body practically jumping out of the desk yet let James take him wherever he wanted. He was on the verge of losing so much control of himself that he almost reached out and took James's hand. Turns out, James wanted to talk, concluded of him basically excusing all of Regulus's harsh actions over the last week and promptly blaming himself for being pushing and making Regulus uncomfortable. If Regulus was a strong man, he would have let James take the fall, walk away, and the problem of his progressing love life would have been gone, and he would be welcome to go back to his old ways. Only, Regulus is not a strong man. No. No, instead, Regulus practically jumped down James's throat, stomping on his self-deprecating attitude, and apologized himself for shutting James out. Regulus doesn't apologize. He realized in the moment it was the beginning of the end. His walls had crumbled enough from James's warmth and pained eyes at the beginning of the idea of being a bother towards Regulus. He crumbled like a house of cards in a pathetic breeze. It was hideous, to be honest. Regulus has yet to rebuild that house of cards, though. He has yet to put back up the defenses against James' warmth, his welcoming presence. He didn't quite manage to explain to James all the skeletons in his closet as to why Regulus was so shifty at the idea of getting close to someone so new. James seemed to see it though, after a few minutes of standing in the empty neural mess room, getting more and more flustered and panicked at the idea of James actually going away because of his own incapability to deal with his own emotions. James just gently shushed him, smiled so soft and kind on his face that Regulus didn't know if he wanted to kiss him or throw up, and told Regulus that they didn't need to be more than friends if Regulus didn't want that. Friends. Regulus didn't want that. He wanted more, but I did terrified him. Still, he agreed to friends. James is a friend Regulus wants to kiss, and who makes his stomach feel like a kaleidoscope of butterflies have been set free inside of him. James is just a friend. Turns out, though, friend or not, James has slotted into Regulus's life like a suspiciously perfect fitting puzzle piece, and Regulus isn't strong enough to shake him away yet. It's only been a week and 2 days of texting back and forth slightly, but Regulus became as attached as a teenage girl with a celebrity crush. A pair of fingers click in front of his face, jolting him out of his head with a sudden snap. He glanced at Pandora across the table. What? I asked you a question 4 times, then called your name repeatedly and you didn't even blink, Pandora explains, and her face is a clear mix of amusement, curiosity, and concern. I was getting worried you'd had a stroke, but now I realize you are daydreaming. I wasn't daydreaming, Pandora hums, concern wiping off her face as she smirks at him. Of course, Petit Étoile. I wasn't, Grace grumbles, huffing. Now, what was your important question? Pandora runs a hand through her already frazzled hair, the blonde locks looking like she's touched a live wire. It's barely up in a bun anymore, so many pieces falling in her face that Regulus can barely see the shape of her eyebrows anymore. In epileptic mothers, there are two medications women can switch to reduce risking the children of cleft lips and heart abnormalities. I can't find anywhere what those two medications are. Lamotrigine and levetiracetam. Regulus answers, taking a sip of his coffee, only to grimace when he finds it's gone cold. He puts the mug down sharply and adds, also, mothers are at risk of their children also developing spins vida in their if their medications aren't swapped. Pandora nods as he scribbles his input down on the flashcard. Perfect, thank you. That's why I'm here. Rags mutters as he stands, snatching his and Pandora's mugs off the table before moving towards the kitchen to make another cup of coffee. He's got the kettle refilled and spooning in his second teaspoon of instant coffee powder into his mug when he hears Pandora's light stepping feet approaching. Is everything okay? Of course. Grace replies as he puts the coffee away and snacks a tea bag out of the pot. He tosses it with ease into Pandora's mug before he turns around to face her whilst the tea kettle boils. She studies him as he leans against the counter and crosses his arms. Why, yes. You seem off, Pandora says. And not just in I'm awfully tired from my night shifts last night and I haven't caught up on the lost sleep kind of. You seem distracted. Regulus feigns nonchalance. He thinks he does a pretty good job, as like Pandora just reminded him, he's been awake for over 24 hours now, with a 13-hour shifts in between. His shifts last night was his last of six, and instead of going home to catch a nap of beauty sleep to make up from the ridiculous amount of hours lost sleep he's had this week, he had to dash straight over to Pandora's flat because he promised her to help her study for her exam on Friday. Of course, Regulus knows he could have cancelled on her and she wouldn't have batted an eyelid after hearing the amount of hours he'd done at work in the last 6 days, but Regulus didn't want to let her down. Pandora wouldn't have complained, and she even offered Regulus various times for him to go home since arriving, but Regulus has refused. Pandora has already missed out on so much due to the truly shitty hand of cards that's dealt with over the last 2 years, and Regulus will be damned if she's ever let down again. Hence the study days straight off the back of Regulus's third night shift. Also hence the hard to penetrate bouts of closed off thinking he's been having. Pandora hit the nail on the head, or is very distracted, and it's another thing he can blame the stupid James Potter for. I don't know what you're talking about. Regulus Black doesn't get distracted, Pandora muses, tilting her head. She looks so much like her mother when she does that. Grace tells her often enough. She never takes it as an insult, even if it was. Being compared to her mother will always be a compliment to Pandora. Not that Regulus would ever disagree, as that wasn't anything negative to be compared to with the late Mrs. Fontaine. Talk to me, Raj. There's nothing to talk about, Regulus insists. He can feel his hands beginning to tremble, and he would scold himself for being such an unnaturally bad liar in this moment if the kettle doesn't click to indicate it's finished. Regulus turns quickly, facing his back to Pandora to hide the blooming flush creeping up his neck and cheeks. Saved by the bell, as they say. Does your distraction have anything to do with a certain someone you visited your flat last weekend and have refused to talk about since? Fuck you. Pandora Regulus thinks hotly. Fuck you and your stupidly accurate memory of my drunken misleadings of body. Again, Regulus says as he puts the milk out of the fridge, still purposely keeping his back to her. There's nothing to talk about. I think there is, Pandora replies, and even without looking at her, Regulus can hear the teasing and softness dripping from her tone. Regulus doesn't need to look either to know she's stepping further into the room. He continues to look down at the cups as he drains her tea bag and adds a dash of milk to her tea as she comes into the line of sight at the side. So, are you going to tell me if the infamous and lovely James Pollard arrives at your flat last weekend? And don't lie, because I've already spoken to Barty, and I know you didn't go to Pottery after you kicked him out. If you've spoken to Bertie, why are you asking me? Because I want to know what happened after Bertie left, and why it seems to have related to you now being a little starry-eyed daydreamer on your study date. Nothing happened. No? Pandora muses, blowing gently on her tea. So, he left as soon as Bertie did? Regulus debates lying. He wants to lie and say that yes, James left straight after Barty did, and there is nothing more to the impending story. Except Regulus knows that Pandora will see straight through it, and if she doesn't, hell will be paid later if she finds out he denied her the small details of his Sunday with James. Judging from the look on your face, I'm guessing my assumptions are correct, and he stayed, Pandora says, and when Regulus doesn't reply, he just stayed the afternoon. Regulus resigns. That's it. We didn't go to pottery because I was tired and he stayed and we watched some TV. Did you feed him? He's not a stray animal, Pandora. Regulus rolls his eyes. We ordered lunch, and then later in the evening, I cooked his pasta dish. Happy? That's literally all. Pandora cuts him off with a giggle, shaking her head. Firstly, petit étoile, you don't do shit food, which meant even if you are scraping together dust and shit out of your cupboards, you would have ultimately cooked something delicious for him. Secondly, that's not all. The Regulus everyone else knows would have thrown James out as soon as Barty went too. You let him stay. I felt bad. Pandora narrows her eyes. You felt bad? Yes, racist. I invited him over drunk on a Sunday morning. Invited him to fucking pottery class. That was never going to happen. And then let Barty grill him into him so bad the guy looked like he was sweating with nerves. Hence, I felt bad. So I let him stay over the afternoon while we watched some TV. Then cooked him some dinner while he chatted literally non-stop about fuck knows what before he left. That's it. That's not it. That's not it at all. But the fact of that scares Regulus. He did feel bad from messing James about. He also let James stay because a weak part of him wanted to. He wanted James to stay. He wanted James to sit beside him on the sofa and wait for him to sleep off the gripping hangover that was embarrassingly plaguing him. Regulus wanted James to stay while he cooked a mediocre dinner as a small hand of forgiveness for ruining the other guy's Sunday. He won't tell Pandora, but well, it's the truth that James did talk nonstop, and most of it was strange waffle about his life and his friends. Hurtless didn't mind. He enjoyed listening to James talk. He liked the way James's face lit up whenever he talked about his friends, or his eyes softened and his whole demeanor softened when he talked about his parents. James clearly likes talking, and that's fine, because Regulus enjoyed listening. He enjoyed it a lot. You look troubled. Regulus closed his eyes. Is he bad for you? Yes. No. Not at all. So much. Never. The truth is, Regulus doesn't think James could ever be bad. All James has to do is flash a smile, and Regulus feels like the world is stopped spinning out of control. Just for a moment, he makes Regulus feel warm. Reg? Pandora prompts. I can tell if this is an internal crisis or I actually need to be concerned. He's Effie's boy, no? I don't think anyone who's been raised by that woman could be a bad person, but still. No, Rose murmurs, opening his eyes and focusing on the wonky towel in the middle of his floor. He's not bad. Then why do you look like you're already heartbroken? Glock, aim, shoot. Regulus wants to laugh and tell Pandora that he looks like this because his heart was broken long before he ever met James. It was broken before he ever met Pandora or Barty or Evan. Cracked, ruined, shattered, and butcherly put back together without of date glue. His heart is barely held together anymore. All the pieces are put back wrong, mismatched, and ruined. It won't take much to make him break apart again, which is why Reckless is so determined to protect it so much. How many times can something shatter before even putting it back together becomes impossible? How many times can something be ruined before it's too broken? Reckless? Flora murmurs, and a moment later her warm hand is gently cupping his wrist, rubbing her thumb over the notch of his bones. I don't know what's going on in your head, but whatever happened that Sunday and since, if it's good, you should let it happen. James is good. He's so good, so pure and warm and gentle. Regulus is scared he'll poison it. Pandora keeps rubbing his wrists, an action so small yet so soothing, grounding. Regulus takes a rugged breath, lifting his head enough to meet her eyes. We're meant to be studying, he murmurs. We're taking a break. Pandora shrugs, smiling softly. It's good for the brain. Her hand moves from his wrist and comes up to gently tussle his hair, swirling a finger through a curl. Come on, Ray says, and he's relieved to hear his voice has lost the weak waver. You need to study. Pandora rolls her eyes playfully. Another 5 minutes. My brain feels like mush between my ears right now. Fine, Ray smirks, deciding to change the subject from his own bleeding wounds. Have you introduced Xeno to Benji yet? Instantly, Pandora's face lights up. I didn't have to, she replies. Benji went into the restaurant where Xeno waiters and spoke to them. What? Rex blanches, horrified. Why the fuck did he do that? because he didn't want to get in the way of me and Xeno. Pandora smiles, shoulders easing. It's such a comparison compared to when she first told Regulus about Benji being in town and Xeno being uncomfortable about it. It was brilliant, actually. Whatever he said to Xeno was perfect and completely honest. There wouldn't have been a reason to lie, Regulus says pointedly, albeit a little harsh. He has no problem with Xeno, but he doesn't like how they've made Pandora feel insecure for something so long ago that made it one of the reasons she's the best person he knows. Xeno had no reason to be worried about it. They were just worried, I think, Pandora challenged softly, flashing him a reassuring smile. They haven't had the easiest relationship history either, I think. When they heard my ex was back in town, they just panicked. Benji spoke to them though, and he told Zeno everything was that between us before he went back to Japan. Said he came back in peace to simply see everyone again. Turns out, Xeno loves him. Rags hums teasingly. You got a competition? Pandora laughs, giggling. I think I might have to start considering I might perhaps leading towards polyamory. Saucy, Rags teases and then tilts his head. And also completely unsurprising. Shut up! Pandora gasped, taking a hand from his hair to smack him on the shoulder. I'm just glad your panic is over now. You and Xeno can continue on your gorgeous path towards happily ever after. Don't be silly. Pandora rolls her eyes, but her cheeks are glowing ruby. I'm not, Regis says seriously. If you and Xena aren't married with kids before I'm 30, I refuse to believe in love anymore. Pandora hums and inclines her head suspiciously. You claim you don't believe in love anyways. I don't. And James? Regulus's hands twitch to smack the tea out of her hand out of pure annoyance. Instead he says, let's go back to studying. When Regulus was studying before he qualified, he could count the amounts of times he got a full night's sleep on one hand. Between studying, placements, and being dragged out by Barty and Evan to live the university life, time was stretched and naturally sleep was the last priority. Full 14-hour shifts and still need to study the anatomy of the brain down to the tiniest detail? Drink coffee to make up for pulling an all-nighter. Being peer pressured into going to the leaky when you've been studying since 4 in the morning. Espresso martinis all night and caffeine pills in the morning to survive classes. Therefore, Regulus is no stranger to sleep deprivation and staying awake for unhealthy lengths of time. He's a medical student after all. If he couldn't survive on little to no sleep for days on end, he wouldn't have made it past the first 6 months. Plus, forcing oneself to stay awake for unhealthy periods of time just makes finally getting into bed so much more exciting than normal. When Regulus leaves Pandora's flat at almost 9 o'clock that night, all he is thinking about is how the sleep he is going to get tonight is going to be unmatched. As the cool air bites at his skin as he unlocks his car, all his thoughts on the cuddles he's going to demand from Sylvester when he finally gets to curl into his cozy bed for the first time in over 30 hours. He barely got the key in the ignition when his phone rings, the dial tone shattering the pleasant silence around him. With a whine that he will never admit to, Reckless snatches his phone out of his jacket pocket roughly, The whine turns into a groan when he sees Euphemia's name lit on the screen. Regulus loves the woman, but it is never, ever a good sign once she phones. It only means one thing. Regulus already knows what's going to happen when he swipes answer on the last ring. Euphemia, he answers, and he doesn't even bother to try to hide the discontentment in his tone. They've done this dance hundreds of times before, and Regulus has long stopped trying to feign optimism to stay in Euphemia's good books. To what do I owe this pleasure so late in the evening? I'm going to take a wild guess and say it's not to invite me out for a drink. Regulus, I'm so sorry to have to ask this of you. Euphemia agrees, and Regulus will hand it to her. She sounds absolutely ragged. Regulus knows the world and emergency was in chaos when he handed over to her and Dorcas this morning. So he can't imagine the day shift has been entirely easy for them. I know you were on shift last night that you picked up an extra, and I wouldn't be asking this of you if I hadn't exhausted all other options because you deserve some time off. The ancient nurse covering tonight has phoned in sick. The other doctor I had on shift tonight has been called down to emergency because all the staff down there are down with the flu, and I'm so sorry, but is there any chance you can come by tonight? You mean that you and Dorcas don't fancy doing 24-hour shifts? Rose tries to joke, but it comes out tightly and feeble. You're slacking on your old age, Euphemia. She chuckles, though it sounds breathless and tired. I'm so sorry. I know I said this morning that you deserved some time off after doing 6 shifts in a row, but I really don't know who else to call. I thought we had the night sorted, and anyone who would have been available was brought in today to cover other departments. She breaks off with a heavy sigh, so bone tired. Vargas can't find in himself to even be slightly annoyed at him. He's sure he's with the rest of the world, but not with Euphemia. Everyone just keeps calling in sick. It's cold and flu season. We shouldn't expect any less. Vargas draws, rubbing his dry and itchy eyes. It's okay. I get it. I can be there in half an hour. Please don't rush, darling. You're doing me a huge favor. Euphemia says, her tone frankly dripping with relief and gratitude. I don't know how to make this up to you. Just thank you. You want to make it up to me? Grace asks as he clips his seatbelt in. Run down to the cafe and grab me the largest black coffee they offer and a sandwich. Any sandwich. Coffee and food, all is forgiven. I don't believe that will be enough to make up for this. Bryce scoffs. Oh no, absolutely not. Not in the slightest. However, caffeine is decent enough bribe to get me to even make the journey. And if you go now, you'll catch them before they close, and I'm forced to drink the dust in the staff room they try to call instant coffee. Euphemia laughs breathlessly through the phone. Deal. Oh, go now. I promise, Regulus. Sweet, thank you so much. Bandage your bleeding heart, Dr. Potter. Save the compassion from all patients and get your overworked ass down to the cafe. I'll be there by 9:45 latest. My hero. I know. Feel free to rub it in everyone's face. When Regulus hangs up, he spots the new notification at the top of his phone. James, 2104. Serious question. Marmite on pasta, yes or no? Regulus, 2109. I refuse to sink to that level of absurdity by answering that question. His phone pings with a reply before he's down the end of Pandora's Road, but Reyes refuses to let himself acknowledge it. He's so tired already. He's worried if he doesn't give his full attention and more to the road, then he'll wrap his car around a lamppost like a pretzel before he even makes it to the hospital. He gets to the hospital in decent time due to being so late, and Reckless counted as the roads being quiet with as a silver lining. He slugs up to the neurology floor in the elevator and manages to dip into the mass room to change into some syrups before anyone spots him. He's thankful that he was proactive enough to bring in a handful of clean long sleeve shirts on one of his middle shifts, so now he's able to still wear one underneath his scrubs like he always does. He's not meant to, of course. It's against hospital regulations to have sleeves that reach below the elbow. But Regulus has been here long enough to be brave enough to twist that rule and wear them as long as he rolls up his sleeves when he's doing work with the patients. Slughorn pulled him up on it when he was a student and said if Regulus was cold, that that's what the white doctor coats were for. Regulus had almost laughed at him because the excuse of being cold was non-existent when the ward radiators were permanently pumping out heat all day and all night. Regulus showed him the scars on his wrist, and Slogan had become more uncomfortable than prude man watching a woman give birth. Safe to say, no one mentioned the long sleeves again. Regulus finds Euphemia at the reception desk, slumped in the chair and over the tabletop, face cradled in the cup on her hand. Her eyes are closed, face slack. She looks knackered, hair a mess and bags swollen under her eyes. She looks about 10 years older than she did when he handed over to her this morning. Around them, the ward is quiet. The lights are dimmed, as they always are when it's so late to encourage patients to shut up. From a glance at the board, Regulus can see that every bed in the ward is occupied. Regulus sits down as gently as he can, but the movement disturbs Euphemia from the light sleep she must have dozed off into. She jerks before his butt is fully in the seat, eyes snapping open and body jolting up. For a moment, she looks more disorientated than Regulus has ever seen her. Then her eyes fall on Regulus, and the startled look is replaced with one of warmth. Sleeping on the job, are we? Ray smirks, easing back into the chair fully. Very unprofessional of you, Dr. Potter. Darling, she says, rubbing her eyes. Do not fear, your knight in shining armor is here now. Regulus spots the coffee on the side with his name scribbled on it. He snatches it into his hand and takes a greedy gulp. You look awful, by the way. She scoffs half-heartedly. Thank you. We haven't had a day like this in a long time. Chaotic doesn't even begin to describe it. She sighs wildly. I just can't believe how much has gone wrong today, honestly. Well, spill me a tiny handover about the imbeciles currently occupying the bed, and then feel free to get your overworked hind home. So see Monty. Charming. Euphemia whips through the handover, which Reckless appreciates. She wants to hurry it so she can go home, but his sleep-deprived brain can barely keep up. His heart sinks when she admits at the end that he's the only doctor on shift tonight with only one nurse and two healthcare assistants. Regulus knows night shifts have skeleton crews, but the four of them means that That is more than half the rest of the rota staff, either of or in other departments. I'm so sorry, love. Euphemia apologizes again. I wish I could give you more help, but there's no one else I can phone to come in. It's fine. Ray smiles tightly. Because it's absolutely not fine, and this night shift is going to be the hardest one of his career so far. But it's not her fault. She climbs out of the chair stiffly, rounding the desk before she stops again. You really are my hero, she says, and her face is crinkled with guilt and worry. You look knackered, darling. Not as bad as you, he smiles. Go on, go home. You've done enough. Thanks for the coffee and the sandwich. We'll survive without you for the night. Get some duty sleep before tomorrow. Thank you, City says again, and Regulus points towards the end of the ward with his already half-drunk coffee. Once she's done, Regulus drags himself out of the chair and goes with the last of the ward round that was missed due to Euphemia dedicating all her energy to finding a doctor to cover the night shifts. One of the HCAs come and ask if he can help with a patient's pain management, which is general healthcare assistant code for all. They want some painkillers, but I don't know if they allowed it. So you're the only adult on shift. Can you deal with this, please? Regulus gives the guy some painkillers, which only ends with him being dragged into a 30-minute lecture from the guy giving a tangent lecture about blue light from computers being used during the night and damaging people's eyes and brain capacity. Regulus doesn't know how he managed to hide his disinterest, but he clearly doesn't put enough effort towards the end, as the guy breaks himself off to say, Sorry, Doc. Didn't mean to ramble like that. You look absolutely wiped, you know? Regulus can't be bothered to hold his tongue about the fact that he's fully aware that he looks absolutely wiped, as he's been awake for over 40 hours, so instead he just grunts roughly and storms out of the room. He takes his time writing up the notes from the walk round, pausing as he finishes the rest of his coffee and scarfs down the sandwich from Euphemia. His head is beginning to pound behind his eyes, and he outwardly signs when he realizes he hasn't got anything in his locker to aid it. He spots the HCA loitering around the reception desk when he's almost finished, looking lost and bored. So Radis tells him to excuse himself for a few minute break. The kid runs off the ward like a gun has gone off. Tossing down the patient files, Radis pulls out his phone to see two missed texts on James. James, 2110. Archie, please, I'm in the middle of a serious debate with Pat, and I need you on my side about this. James, 2234. Really hoping your lack of reply means you've finally gone home and gone to bed, not because the idea of Marmite on pasta actually offends you. Regulus rolls his eyes. Regulus, 2257. Marmite on pasta gravely offends me. I actually can't imagine anything worse, and I lived off hospital sandwiches for the entire of my first year studying. So therefore, no Marmite on pasta. James, 2258. You don't know what you're missing. James, 2258. What are you still doing up? I thought you said you were leaving Pandora's at 9. Regulus, 2259. I did, but I got called into work because London is filled with incompetent doctors that don't understand the importance of turning it up their assigned shifts. When James doesn't reply after his usual 5 seconds, Regulus goes to message Balti to ask if he has any headache tablets in his locker down in cardio. But he only gets as far as typing out the first half of the message when James's name flashes on the screen. James, what are you? Why are you at the hospital? James interrupts. Rose thinks in surprise. I work here. Yes, I know that. James stresses, huffing. I mean, why are you there again? You said this time last night you were on your 6 weeks in a row and you've spent all night with Pandora. Have you even slept? How long have you been awake? Is it even safe for you to be there? The onslaught of questions catch Regulus off guard. His mind buffers like someone has tampered with the witch. He's left gaping and grasping rapidly for thoughts. Finally, he sighs heavy and deep. I don't appreciate you doubting my abilities to work professionally, James. Oh, come off it, Raj. James whines. You know I don't mean it like that. I just. Whatever you're doing, stop it. James makes a hurt noise over the phone. Doing what? This! Regular Steve's phoning me up while I'm at work and telling me how to do my job. I'm not telling you how to do your job, Regulus, James grumbles. I'm just worried. There's nothing to be worried about. Of course, James mocks snappishly. Of course! What's there to worry about? You doing your 7th shift in a row after being awake for, like, what, 30 odd hours now? 40 hours, actually. Regulus! He cries, and Regulus holds his eyes at the dramatics. Why are you doing that? Because the agency built on your mother, so it was either I come in or she does a 36-hour shift. James makes another wound noise. Regulus is caught between being infuriated that James is making such a big deal out of this and seriously questioning his ability to deliver safe practice to his patients tonight, but also overwhelmed with the fact that James is worried about him. It makes him both comforted and nauseous. Look, Marius sighs, rubbing his eyes as he leans on his elbows at the reception desk. It's not a big deal, it's one more night shift. And night shifts are usually more mellow than the day shifts anyway. Plus, I've gone without sleep longer, so you don't need to worry your big head about. That brings me no comfort at all, James grumbles, and he generally does sound miserable. And I don't have a big head, thank you very much. You really do, Rice teases hotly. Never mind that, though. You survived 25 years with a head almost too big to fit through doors. I'm sure you'll survive a few more. Lovely as always, James chuckles, and Reckless's chest tightens at the sound. He calls that sound, and it shouldn't feel so good. Are you really okay, though? Reckless breathes out heavily. James. No, seriously, staying up this long isn't good for the body. You're going to make yourself sick doing this. And before you start, no, I'm not trying to undermine your professional ability. So don't start that again. I'm just worried about you. You're going to be dead on your feet by the morning. Or more dead than you feel now. You are seriously underestimating my ability to survive on little sleep now. It's not little sleep, Reg. You're surviving on no sleep, James says. Don't you forget, I was a medical student once too. I had my fair share of overrunning shifts or doing ridiculous days the chore. But even I draw the line under being awake over 40 hours and shoving two 12-hour shifts in the middle of it. It's going to be over 48 hours awake by the time you're finished in the morning. Yes, I know, James. Bryce rolls his eyes. It's not a big deal. I'll survive. So don't start losing sleep over it. Not a funny joke. It wasn't a joke. I'm not laughing. Regulus growls in frustration, fisting his head. James, I'm picking you up in the morning. Regulus freezes in his head, tugging. Pardon? I said I'm picking you up in the morning. James repeats, tone stern. I don't like you taking this shift after the last week you've had. But clearly, you won't listen to my reasonable argument. However, I won't stand to you also driving yourself an hour across London to get home as well. Maria scoffs in disbelief. You won't stand for it. It's my duty as a paramedic to not let yourself drive, knowing you will definitely end yourself in a car crash with how tired you're going to be. James argues. I'm serious, Reg. I will be there at 8 o'clock to pick you up and make sure you get home in one piece. And if you refuse, I will be phoning the police and saying you're unfit to drive. Oh, pour l'amour de Dieu. Oh, for goodness sake. Do not you dare start talking French to me to distract me for doing this. James snaps, but the laugh that follows dismisses any heat he held in the tone. I'm not joking. I won't let you sleep. I won't sleep knowing you're going to be getting behind the wheel in the morning. Boo for you then. Regulus, James pleads. Regulus snarls, animalistic and low. Fine, fine, you can pick me up in the morning and drive me home so I don't get railroad my car. Honnêtement, je pensais que j'étais têtu, mais tu prends une peut-être qu'on soit persistant, Rachel. Honestly, I thought I was stubborn, but you take the fucking crown, you persistent, infuriating. James trickles. Again, no idea what you're saying, but it sounds lovely. I can assure you what I was saying was anything but lovely. I'm happy with staying, none the wiser, James replies, and he sounds so dopey and happy, makes Regulus's insides shrill. So, 8 o'clock? It'll probably be late. I don't mind waiting. Of course you don't. What am I supposed to do with my car? I'll drive you to pick it up after you've had a decent night's sleep, James offers. Are you this generous to everyone? Only lovely French doctors. I'll give you Delacroix's number then. Who's that? Scare the doctor down in an emergency? Fergus smirks, considering I'm starting to realize you have a bit of a degrading kink. I'm also sure you'll get along just fine. James sputters indignantly through the phone. I do not have a degradation kink. You call me lovely every time I insult you. Shut up. Ooh, feisty. Ryan smirks, and then he spots the nurse heading towards the reception desk. I've gotta go. Text me. Ne sois pas désespéré. Don't be desperate. Naughty, but still. James sing-songs, but Regulus doesn't answer before he hangs up, because the nurse has already come to stand in front of him. Can I help you? Bryce asks, pocketing the phone. Regulus, thankfully, was correct in his assumption when he told James that the night shifts that can be more mellow than day shifts. Someone was looking down on Regulus tonight, because apart from a young lad having a series of seizures that resulted in his cannula ripping out, spewing blood everywhere, that instantly led to the HCA in the room throwing up all over his shoes, Nothing happened, and 8 o'clock rolled around slowly. Rita supposed at least that night would have gone quicker if it had been busier, but he's certainly relieved he hasn't run off his feet, as he doesn't think he would have had the energy. He consumed more instant coffee since his phone call with James than he thinks has ever, and he's surprisingly awake when he hands the over to Dorcas and Effie in the morning, both of which look surprisingly refreshed. It sounds like a miracle, Dorcas muses, fiddling with her hearing aid in her ear. About the time we had a quiet shift on this ward. You are a miracle worker, kiddo. Euphemia smiles. Lucky bastard, more like, Dorcas laughs, ruffling his hair ruthlessly. Saved the night and got 4 discharges ready before our arrival. Anyone want to place bets on how long the bed will stay empty for? No, and nor do I care, Argus sighs. I'm not planning on stepping foot in this place until Friday. Whoa, 3 days off, Dorcas teases. Check you out. I can see if I can cover your Friday shifts, darling, Euphemia offers. I saw the rota last week before I left. You've got another 6-day week coming up. Ryder shakes his head. I know, but it's fine. I'm covering for Lestrange, so hopefully I'll be in theaters more than I am here. Okay, darling, as long as you're sure. Euphemia says, though she doesn't sound approving. Though, thank you again for last night. I've lost count of how many times you've thanked me for. Ryder muses. You're starting to sound like a broken record. I'm going to keep saying that until you graduate, it wears off. Euphemia smiles kindly. You're 1 in a million, Dr. Black. Keep praising his arrogant ass, and I'm going to have to turn my hearing aids off. August chides. Ray smirks at her, ducking when she goes to cuff his head. Don't be bitter, Meadows, he says as he claims to his teeth. Praise or no praise, we all know I'm better than you. Watch your back, Black. Why? In case you try to kiss my ass. Ray teases. We're hardly each other's types, Kaz. She rolls her eyes, and Euphemia is hiding her face behind her hands, but the shaking the shoulders give her away enough. Have a lovely shift, ladies, he calls as he slowly makes his way away from the desk. It's almost 8:30 by the time he gets changed back into yesterday's clothes. His feet ache, his muscles feel heavy and weak, and there's a pounding beginning behind his eyes again, telling him the headache tablets have he sneakily swiped from the drug room are wearing off. Shoving used shrubs in his bag to take home to wash, Burgess checks his phone again. James. 0716. Good morning, almighty doctor. I hope the night shift was kind to you. Your personal taxi will be outside A&E at 8 sharp. James, 1801. Here, don't worry if you overrun. I'm happy to argue with the staff if they tell me to move until your highness arrives. Regulus rolls his eyes, what feels like the millionth time in 48 hours. Regulus. 0822. I'm done. You're still parked at A&E? When James tells back yes, he makes his way down. He drags his feet through the emergency department, barely paying attention to the overflowing hallways and beds dumped and left wherever they fit. It's not his problem for 3 days, and he doesn't have the brain capacity to wonder if it's going to be better or worse by the time he comes back on the weekend. When Regulus steps out of the hospital, the ambulance bays are full and the sun is shining down so bright and sharp it makes his head feel like there are huge spikes behind his eyes. He didn't assume it would be hard to spot James' car, if he's the only imbecile parking in the busy drop-off area. Though he realizes as His eyes adjust to the light that if there is more than one car, he won't know which one is James's. There's only one car though, and Regulus inwardly sighs. A crystal clean, dark grey Range Rover sits alone in the drop off bay. Of course, James Pollard drives a bloody Range Rover. Regulus knows he manages to keep his face unimpressed as he approaches the car, despite the fact his stomach is doing cartwheels over the fact that, of course, handsome James Pollard drives a handsome Range Rover. Fuck. Regulus is so screwed. He sees James grinning at him out of the driver's windows, and Regulus rolls his eyes defiantly as he makes his way to the passenger. Stepping up into the car, Regulus is enveloped by a bubbly of warm strawberry smelling air. James's car smells like strawberries, and he's got the heated seat on for Regulus in advance. Regulus wants to die. Good morning, sunshine. James greets, and Regulus's brain fuses out because it's on the tip of his tongue to correct James that actually he is the sunshine and Regulus is more than miserable cloudy storm. This sleep deprivation is really starting to get to him. Regulus is starting to get concerned. He's turning delirious. James's smile is slowly slides down, his eyebrows pinching. Regulus realizes a moment too late that he's taking too long to answer, and he has actually spent a minute staring at the other boy. Reg, James asked gently, you okay? Regulus swallows around the heavy lump in his throat. His mouth is flooded with saliva. You drive a Range Rover, he blurts out, and the moment it leaves his mouth, he cringes. James chuckles breathlessly. I do. You like it? She's my baby. He strokes the steering wheel affectionately, and Regulus feels like he's melting. He blames the heated seats. It's only aiding the deliriousness from the lack of sleep. You look like the type to drive a Range Rover, Ray says. That better not be an insult. Don't you dare insult Dell like that. Regulus side-eyes him. Dell? Her name is Delilah. James nods, stony-faced with seriousness. Dell for short, and she deserves your utmost respect. Regulus chuckles. Of course, my deepest apologies. Dell is lovely. She is, isn't she? James beams, stroking the dashboard. Regulus shakes his head. He shouldn't be surprised. James is the car lover type. Regulus takes pride in his own car, of course, but he sure as hell hasn't named it and definitely doesn't stroke the dashboard like the car. You look exhausted, James murmurs, and Regulus rolls his head against the headrest to look at him. How the hell did you manage last night's shifts? Sheer arrogance and stubbornness. James barks and laughs. That and add a generous amount of dedication and willpower. Grace just hums in reply, sinking into the seat as James starts the car, begins to roll it out of the emergency parking bay. Are you hungry? James asks once they're pulling out onto the main road. We could grab some breakfast before they take you home. You really should eat after being up this long. Your body's seriously deprived of energy, though I appreciate if you want to go home instead. Breakfast sounds nice, Rose assures. He's so hungry to the point that he's borderline ravenous. I don't really fancy sitting in a restaurant though. If I have to be around people for much longer, I fear I'll commit murder and lose my license. Don't worry about being arrested and prison part out of that equation. Losing my doctor's license would be worse. Of course, James laughs. What do you fancy to eat? Anywhere that does coffee. James shakes his head adamantly. No more coffee for you. You need vitamins like orange juice or something. If you have any more caffeine, I'm worried you'll land yourself in the hospital from bloody heart attack. But no buts, James chides, holding up a silencing finger. Regulus's mouth slams shut as blush heats his cheek and neck. You need decent food and drink full of nutrition and value. And I know just the place. Do you trust me? Yes. For some reason beyond knowledge. Yes. Already? No. He spits out, mostly out of defiance against his own hard, delusional mind. James just smiles at him, eyes off the road for long enough for Regulus to see the kindness and mischief there. Let me change your mind. When James pulls up outside of a cafe, the only thing he does is double check Regulus eats meat and cheese before he's dashing out of the car. He leaves the keys in, the car's running so the heating is still blasting. It's so toasty and quiet, and it surrounds him like a sedative blanket, comforting him to the bone. He doesn't realize he's closed his eyes and slumped down until the driver's door is opening up and he's bolting up straight. Why do you sleep? James asks, climbing in with a brown bag in his hand and a cup holder balanced between his forearm and chest. He looks worried and guilty. I should have just taken you home. I'm so sorry. You're absolutely exhausted, and I want to get you breakfast at Potter. Race interrupts. Stop fluttering like a trapped butterfly and give me my breakfast. Right, James swallows. Right, okay, sorry, here. You take these, I'll drive us somewhere with a better view. Is that okay? Regulus rolls his eyes, snatching the bag out of James's hand and the drinks. Stop apologizing and drive. I've been awake for 49 hours, and none of you won't hurt. I don't detest from having a view while I have my breakfast other than restaurant bins and morning commuters. Hence, put your license to good use and put your foot down. James blinks in surprise, seemingly frozen for a moment. Then he grins, wide and beaming. He nods. Alright then, sunshine, let's go. Is this another moment where I need to trust you? Rose asks as James pulls away from the curb. It is indeed, James grins. Believe me, you won't be disappointed. Rose hums disbelievingly. Asking for my trust twice in 1 hour? Well, you've given it to me, haven't you? You could be poisoning and kidnapping me. Well, then you are not very smart for falling for it, are you? Watch it, Potter. Starting to learn, and even joking about your intelligence is a sharp shot for you. I said, watch it. I can't tell if you're being mean because you're overtired, hungry, or if it's just another level of your genuine personality. Regulus huffs, rolling his eyes, smells from the food in the bag wafting up in his face, making his stomach pinch with hunger. Whatever James got him for breakfast, it smells divine, and Regulus is getting impatient to eat it. James only drives for about 20 minutes. It takes Regulus up until he's parked on the side of the road for him to clock that they're in Nothing Hill, and about 15 minutes from his apartment. Did you seriously drive us to Lancaster Road? He asks. James nods, blushing as he pulls up the hand brake and undoes his seatbelt in a quick flash, barely giving Regulus time enough to spot the tension of muscles balled underneath his long sleeve t-shirt. Regulus does not state, and he does not think about how James looks, but he definitely like he's definitely strong enough to throw Regulus with ease. Like onto a table. Or bed. Interesting. I love this road, James shrugs. It's so pretty. It's practically a tourist attraction. Yeah, but, James sighs, taking the drink out of his hand and placing them in their own cup holders between them. It's currently 9:30 in the morning and I don't see any tourists. You cannot argue that this isn't a better view than the side of the road in Soho. I didn't disagree that it's not nicer than Soho, Ray shrugs. I was just saying that it's a tourist attraction. I love how easy you outplays, James toughs, shaking his head though he's smiling. Regulus is starting to wonder if it's his automatic expression. Suddenly, he claps his hands sharply, causing Regulus to barely stifle a jolt in surprise. Now, ready for the best breakfast you've ever had? You've set my standards so high so far. I can't tell if that's sarcasm, but I'm going to pretend that you're practically ready to combust with excitement. Now, open the bag, sunshine. Stop calling me sunshine, Rose grumbles, but he doesn't resist opening the bag. Looking in, he's not sure if he's supposed to be able to tell what the mystery breakfast is supposed to be when he sees two round, wrapped sheets of paper. He looks up at James through his eyelashes. What is it? Open one, James says, and he's practically vibrating in his seat. Regulus refuses to find it cute and directs himself to pretending it isn't intriguing how excited someone can get over buying breakfast. Regulus is worried if he makes James wait any longer, then it will be James that actually combusts. So he reaches into the bag, pulls out one, and unwraps it. A bagel. James scoffs, looking hurt. A bagel? Oh no, no. Regulus, that isn't just a bagel. Oh no. This is the best breakfast bagel to serve the earth. The ultimate breakfast dish. The unmatchable cuisine. A meal designed before its time. Regulus blinks. Once, twice, three times. How is this the best breakfast bagel? James takes an exaggeratedly deep breath, eyes and lashes fluttering for a moment as to brace himself. Regulus, allow me to introduce you and your sad little life. Excuse me! To the most delicious bagel that is delicately handcrafted with two sunny side up eggs cooked to perfection, melted cheese, crispy bacon rashes, an original recipe of guacamole, and drizzle of just the right amount of sriracha ketchup. Regulus looks between the bagel and James, whose face is lit up. He resembles a metaphorical Christmas tree. Are you going to cry when I eat it and call it mediocre? No, because you won't say that, James grins. You're going to say it's the best and you want more. And if I don't, then yes, I will probably cry. Ray's hums, pursing his lips. Interesting. Will you try it now? James whines, please. Reyes tries not to focus on how much he actually likes it from James's bagging, and instead unwraps the bagel more so he can take a decent bite. James is watching with such intensity that Regulus can barely maintain a semi-stable heartbeat, skyrocketing and jabbing like a rabbit. His heart races under the glued fixture of James's eyes, watching his every move, every micro expression on his face. James's own skin is flushed, and Regulus would do anything to know what's going on inside the older male's head. A few moments after he swallowed and says nothing, James jolts in his seat like he wants to stand and move around in frustration but can't. Well, he pleads, what do you think? Regulus hums again, tilting his head. He can see James getting more and more wound up, like a child patiently waiting for a sweet snack and their parents teasing them over their decision. He finally meets James's eyes. He shrugs his shoulder. Pretty good. James gasps at him. His face stays slack for so long. Regulus is anticipating starting a fast test of making sure his blood pressure didn't skyrocket so much during his excitement that he's had a bloody stroke. Pretty good, James shrieks. Ray's pretty sure he's never heard someone reach such a high octave. Pretty good! Regulus, how dare you? I can't believe you. James cuts himself off when Regulus throws his head back and laughs. I'm joking, Paulin, he chuckles, shaking his head. You're so easy to wind up, it's embarrassing. Your precious sandwich is lovely. Breakfast bagel. James corrects him sulkily. Regulus rolls his eyes. Sorry, your precious breakfast bagel is lovely. Truly. Best bagel I've ever had. James pouts, quirks up. I knew it. I knew you'd like it. Pretty French boy. It does have a taste after all. Watch it, Potter. Rose warns. Or you'll be getting sriracha in your eyes before you finish your own meal. James' eyes widen slightly, but his cheeks glow ruby red. He nods rapidly. Noted. They finish their bagels in silence, only speaking where Regulus grumbles about the smoothies instead of having coffee, to which James plows into another tangent about Regulus's general concern in caffeine intake. How do you afford a car like this? Regulus asks, between slurping halfway down his smoothie. He won't admit it aloud, but that it's pretty delicious, much like the bagel. Aren't you currently out of work? James shrugs, his own smoothie already finished. I know I don't look like it, but I'm surprisingly immaculate at saving money. Worked hard when I was in the AMBO service up north, saved like a starving man, and brought this as a super belated graduation present for myself. You paid this yourself by just saving your monthly wage? James flushes suddenly. Okay, fine, I saved most of it, and my grandparents made up the rest. They want to get me something for my graduation, and when I told them I want this car, they helped me out. Regulus frowns. Why do you look embarrassed about that? James shrugs again, looking ahead out of the windscreen. I'm the only one of my friends that comes from money. Well, Pat does too, but he doesn't have any contact with his family anymore. Mooney and Wontel have always had financial struggles growing up. Don't get me wrong, they've never gone without, and they've always had the most amazing families, but sometimes I feel like I grew up in a whole different world through them. I did, of course. The playing field is always different when you grow up with wealthy parents and your grandparents. I live in a fucking manor in Scotland. Having money is nothing to be ashamed of, Wright says. It's your attitude about having money that matters. Wright just wants to tell him then. He wonders momentarily if this is the time to tell James about his childhood. He'd be the first person in London to know the truth, to know where Regulus came from. No one knows that Regulus came from old money, a wealthy family of lawyers and businessmen. No one knows that his family has more money growing up than they knew what to do with, and it poisoned them worse than any toxin in the world could. James doesn't seem to have been cursed the same way the blacks have. None of the two potters Regulus has met seem even remotely tarnished by their wealth. But perhaps that has more to do with the general poison that runs through the veins of anyone from the ancient house of Black. Regis knows that when he came to London when he was 18, he started fresh. It took a while to adjust, having no money apart from what he earned himself. And the adjustment was both physical and mental shock to him. He had to adapt fast, especially when he felt himself growing bitter by being surrounded by Evan and Barty, both of whom still had ties to their filthy rich families, and didn't have to scramble for a dime during the whole of their university years. Reckless meant it though, when he said to James that having money doesn't matter, but it's how you use it that does. It's about if you rub it in people's faces for your own pleasure and brag about never struggling, or if you keep it nonchalant and use it to help people with less than you. They've never made me feel bad for it, James says. I just do automatically. When we were in school and one day had to get a job at 15 to help his parents with the rent because they couldn't afford all of his siblings' uniforms with taxpayers breathing down their necks. Or all the times Mooney's family had to cancel Christmas because they've had too many credit cards maxed out to pay for his medications and treatments. I've never had that. I mean, we basically adopted pets, and my parents didn't bat an eyelid at having the house and pay for another teenager. I just shit. I'm making myself sound like a bloody rich twat now. I sound like fucking bragging. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I just. Whoa. Rice Shake said, "It's fine, James. You're not bragging. Calm down. I just stop it." Bryce interrupts firmly. "You don't need to be ashamed about never struggling, and if the situation was different, you wouldn't have had to be ashamed about going without either. Just accept what you have." James stares at him for a moment, expression perplexed. Then he laughs breathily, rubbing a hand down his face. "Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent." Bryce shrugs. "It's fine. We all need to get stuff off our chests once in a while. What about you? What What about your family?" James asks. "I know you're well off now, but what was it like growing up?" Regulus stiffens. He should have anticipated this, although, on the other hand, he's rather pissed at James for asking. "I don't speak to any of my family anymore, so it doesn't matter," he replies, hoping James will accept the answer. "What I have now is what I made for myself. I'd rather tell them that." For a moment, James looks like he's not going to let it go, and asks Regulus to tell more. He looks intrigued, but also sad, which Regulus hates. There's the pity. You can practically taste it coming off the older man, in waves. Finally, James's expression softens, and his mouth stretches into a small smile. "It's sad you don't speak to them anymore, but you've definitely proven you don't need them," he says. "And I like that. What you said, to focus on what you made for yourself instead of what they did." "I don't have much of a choice," Reyes almost says, but he manages to bite his tongue. "Do you want me to drop you off home?" James asks, and Regulus stacks in relief at the change of subject. "It's almost 10, you should really go home and get some sleep." "Yeah," Reyes sighs, "probably a good idea. I'm gonna squeeze a few hours in before Pandora comes round later." James's eyes widen comically. "What? You're doing stuff today? After the last 48 hours you've had?" "Pandora needs help studying for exam on Friday," James Regulus replies. "She's really stressed about it. Not that she needs to be, mind you. She's smart as a whip with this stuff. She'd probably ace it without even trying." "Why does she need your help then?" "I think it's more about moral support." "No one else can do it?" James asks. Regulus looks at him sharply. No, Bossy and Evan are useless when it comes to mid-rivalry. Dad's out of town, so she can't get more support out of him. It's me or nothing, and I'll be damned if she feels because she didn't get the encouragement she deserves. That's very noble. Rose rolls his eyes. She deserved to qualify over a year ago, but she got dealt a shit hand of cards in the second year, and she had to defer. She needs to do this because she's going to be the best midwife in the whole of London. Like you're the best doctor? Absolutely. I'm telling my mum you said that. Regis smirks. She wouldn't dare disagree. Yay, chapter done. Um, and also, I've got 50 subscribers now after over a year of doing this. But I know I'm not doing it at the most efficient way if my goal was to gain popularity. So, well, 50 subscribers. Seeing as the only suggestion I got for doing something was to finish I'm a Healer, but Sleepy Boys fanfic I started with, but then stopped after that fandom had a one too many scandal. But I think finishing it would be a good way to finish off. Shit, this thing's going to be long, isn't it? I don't exactly have a chart how many chapters I need to go, but the chapters were getting longer and longer. Oh, who knows? Anyways, expect that sometime soon if you're interested in that. Um, I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'm sorry it's going to be like half an hour later than I usually upload. I'm recording this a bit late. But, yay. See you next week or sooner, depending on when I get the special up.